Welcome to the Destination Freedom podcast, brought to you by the Community for Financial Freedom. Hello and welcome to the Destination Freedom podcast, episode 2. Classically, the dog starts having a scratch just as I start the episode. Thanks, Bert. I've got the dog in the shed with me. So quite an important episode, this one, actually, because it's the starting point of our wider training program for Destination Freedom and what our community is about, I guess. And an important partner and somebody I've learned a lot from already on the podcast, my friend Lesley. So hello, Lesley, welcome to the podcast.
Hi there, Jeremy. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Well, thank you. You've already had me on your podcast, actually. I can't remember when your episode's coming out and when mine's coming out. One might be before the other, but it'll all come out in the wash, won't it? But we've had a bit of a crossover, so that's really fantastic to help each other out. So Lesley, would you mind just introducing yourself and giving us a bit of your background, career overview, etc., so we can get going?
Absolutely. So I'm Lesley Thomas, and I'm the founder of the Money Confidence Academy. I was asked recently, actually, did I always have a plan to be a mindset and money coach? And the simple answer is no. I didn't. I actually started off my journey, my career in telecommunications, corporate telecommunications, where I worked for 20 years. I then joined my husband in his business where we sell ski property in France and Switzerland. It was great to be able to do that, to successfully transit from corporate into being an entrepreneur. And whilst working in that business did give me the opportunity to be a mum, do the school run, go to sports days, etc., etc., it was a job. It wasn't a passion. And I am really passionate because we spend so long at work in doing something that we really, really enjoy and gives us joy. So I decided back in 2020 to retrain as a business coach. I'd always coached and mentored, but informally. My plan was to become a confidence coach for female business owners because I recognize the importance of having rock solid confidence in my journey. But the more I studied confidence, self-worth, self-value, the subject of money kept coming up. And that really was my eureka moment and the point that I decided to start the Money Confidence Academy, because having confidence with money actually starts with having confidence with ourselves. And very often that's the part that is overlooked. People very often think, well, this stuff called money mindset, I just need to work on that and then I'll be good with money. When actually it's working on yourself first, and then you won't have any issue around money because you will believe in yourself, you believe in what is possible for you. And for me, that was the start of a really incredible journey in understanding behaviours around money. And that is something that I am really, really passionate about.
It's an absolutely fascinating area, Lesley, and a bit of a cornerstone of our product or program, but one we've, to be honest, the program very quickly bounces people into such a specialist area that you're the leading expert in. And so tell me about what the business does, and then we can get into a bit of a detail of Money Confidence.
Well, I start off by helping people to understand, their money bio, because we all have a money bio, and that goes right from the very first memory that we have around money and how our beliefs, behaviors, emotions, how all our beliefs, how all of that stems from that very, very first memory and then gets layered on throughout our childhood, going into our early teens and going into adulthood. And when we can start to see patterns around our behaviors and we can start to see how that is impacting on what we are doing, the decisions we are making, we can then start to make better informed decisions about how we're going to manage our money, how we're going to behave around the things that we want, the goals we're putting in place, how we're going about achieving those goals. Then get my clients to understand, well, where have these behaviors come from? Have you been gifted them by your parents? And I use that word gifted advisedly because no parent sets out to give their children limiting beliefs around money. But what parents don't realize is they are the author of their children's money story. So when we actually start to understand that a lot of our behaviors around money have been inherited from our parents, some good, some not so good, then again, we can start to make really crafted decisions with regards to, now I have a better understanding of this relationship, where it's come from, how it's affecting me. I can then start to make different decisions. And then I layer in a whole lot of different modalities, be that NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, pure coaching, etc., to really help the individual, because we are all individuals. And when it comes to our relationship with money, it cannot be a sheep dip approach, because that will not work for everybody or anybody. They need to be treated as an individual, looking at really how their current relationship with money is impacting them, and then working out the best way to transform that relationship into one that truly works for them.
It's a really fascinating area, Lesley. I learn something every time we talk. It's been fantastic making friends with you and understanding what the business does. So I guess to unpack that a bit more, then what are the main things that you see that are the really limiting factors that the humans that you work with are sort of faced by most of all, I guess? What's the stuff you have to tackle most?
Well, when people first come to me, I think it's usually kind of one of two areas, but they start to uncover a lot more. So they normally come to me because they believe that something is blocking them from making more money, or something has happened to them which they feel is impacting their ability to make more money. But actually, because our relationship with money is so intrinsically linked to our own sense of self-worth and self-value, our relationship with ourselves dramatically impacts many areas of our business. So, for example, visibility. Visibility really does cause us to have a really fundamental problems when it comes to showing up in our business if our own sense of self-worth and self-value is not where it needs to be. Having concerns about, what are people thinking about you? Having concerns about, will people value what I have to say? Will they judge me? Judging yourself for how you look compared to somebody else. The whole comparatinitis and imposter syndrome can really come to the fore when it comes to being visible in your business. And if you're not visible in your business, all you are doing is gifting your nearest competitor your lack of visibility. So your would-be client is ending up going somewhere else because they don't know about what you do and the results that you bring. Putting boundaries in place, again, is not something that's necessarily directly associated with money mindset. But because money mindset is absolutely linked to self-worth and self-value, not putting firm boundaries in place. So allowing clients to turn up late to appointments on a regular basis, but them still expecting to have the full allocated time, or clients contacting you outside of office hours and expecting you to respond to them, or clients not paying you on time and you having to chase them or feeling uncomfortable about chasing them because you don't want that client to become upset and maybe not renew working with you or walking away and never coming back to you. So those are some of the things that people don't necessarily think about when it comes to their relationship with money, but they are very much the symptoms and very often the causes of why you are not growing your business in the way that you want to. Also linked to that is playing small. You know, if you have a sense of not being good enough, if you have a sense of I have enough, then you're going to shy away from doing the very things that you need to do to scale your business, to grow your business. Who am I to have a team? Who am I to have a PA? Who am I to have somebody looking after my tax returns for me? And just keeping yourself small because you don't feel worthy, you might feel reluctant to want to show to other people because they might start questioning who the heck do they think they are running a business that has 5 people in the team, 10 people in the team, 100 people in the team, whatever it might be. So our relationship with money can have a habit of holding us very, very small, because that's where many people feel safe, feel comfortable. But in doing so, you're not going to ever fulfill your full potential. And you're eventually going to look back and say, I wish I had tried. I wish I had done that. Look at that person over there. They're the same age as me. They started the same time as me, but they've achieved so much more than I did, because I didn't do X, Y, and Z. So it's really about unpacking what's important to you, where do you want to get to, and what the gaps are, what might be holding you back, and to work out how can I work within this limitation I currently have to unleash what I really want to have, but feel too uncomfortable in striving for right now.
It's really fascinating, and I just look at, I can think of avatars, I can think of people around me in my life that are definitely limited in those kinds of ways. So there was some talk about the upside things there in terms of limiting them in growth, with understanding how they're spending money that they shouldn't be spending, their behaviors around spending. That must be a really key area for lots of people these days with the world around us. I mean, in our course we do a bunch of stuff around the world around us and how we're being marketed to, how the sort of, you know, Cialdini's weapons of influence are being used against us, and how people influence us, etc. So I know you do a whole piece on cortisol, isn't it, how we make decisions and how we're affected.
And that is the whole thing, that people don't necessarily understand how our relationship with money, our money mindset, when we are in financial stress, how our body reacts. And our body produces cortisol when we are in a situation of high stress. Cortisol was there, you know, many thousands of years ago in caveman time. Cortisol was there when we were in a situation of being chased by a hairy mammoth, you know, fight, flight, or freeze, and not having the time to go, that's a hairy mammoth, so what am I going to do here? What's my strategy? We didn't have to have a strategy. We just ran, basically. But when you are in a situation of high stress, like financial stress, cortisol completely prevents you from being able to form a strategy, because it is literally fight, flight, or freeze. So when you are in a situation of high stress and you have to find a solution, then you need to find a way to calm your body down, because it's only when our nervous system calms down, that the cortisol levels reduce down to a normal level, are we then able to function again as far as working out a solution, becoming solution focused. So when we are in a stressful situation, something like polyvagal breathing, which is breathing in for 5 and then counting out for 10, and doing that 5 or 6 times just to reduce down the level of cortisol, and to then get to a point where you think, okay, I'm in this situation. I don't have the money I need. Debt collectors are at my door, whatever it might be. When you calm yourself down, then you put yourself in the best position to be able to become solution focused. And that's when very often we are able to go, okay, I was feeling like this. I just wanted to hide. I could not come up with a plan. To a few hours later, when you think, okay, this is the situation I am in, everything has calmed down, let me try and work out how I move from where I am to where I want to be. So understanding the neuroscience behind our relationship with money really helps us to understand that there is something fundamental within our physiology that goes back to a completely different topic. So trying to save our lives when we were cave people, to actually today understanding the external influences where our body reacts in exactly the same way, but learning how to manage that response. That is what is going to allow us to come up with the solution that we need to get the result that we require.
That's really fantastic, really enlightening stuff. Thank you. Because particularly now in the times we're facing, we're sailing into fairly unpleasant times, I think. But to be honest with you, just the background picture over a couple of generations now, with house prices rising as they are steadily and have been over generations, and earnings not keeping at that same pace. This is really, I think, Lesley, your coaching, your skills are going to be absolutely paramount in the next 5 to 10 years. I think you're going to be right in the eye of the storm of what we, particularly in the UK at the moment, post Brexit and all that stuff, are going to be facing. Doesn't really matter which government gets in next time around, next year or whenever. There's not going to be any money. It's going to be incredibly challenging, and being just getting a job, having a good career, putting some money in a pension, making other people rich fundamentally probably isn't going to do you any favors when you hit 65 if you're 25 today. I think you've got to, and being marketed to, spending money on lots of stuff that's just for you to be able to show off to people who don't really care anyway, all the usual sorts of social stuff going on in how we're marketed to and how we behave in response. And that, you mentioned a competitive piece, and you mentioned parents. I mean, even when you're a bit older, you get most influenced by the 5 people you spend the most time with, don't you? And there's that whole sort of competitive piece in amongst that, competing with your friends, competing with the neighbours, what car you've got, where you live, what clothes you wear, all that kind of stuff, which actually, once you understand it and can take yourself out of that situation, you realise how silly it is, really. And you could be setting yourself up with a much better financial footing for the future, and getting yourself to a place where you don't have to work, or you have a better balance, or whatever it might be. So, and I know it was fascinating hearing your story of, in effect, how you did that. You got yourself into a role where you're coaching people, you're really enjoying what you do for a living, at the same time as bringing your kids up. You're a bit further on, aren't you? Your kids are a bit older than mine. You've been at this a bit longer, but that's a really beautiful thing in life. I took my daughter swimming. Yesterday was a Monday, we're recording on a Tuesday. Took my daughter swimming yesterday, did some errands and things, got a tire fixed on the wife's car, but went to a nice soft play and stuff like that in the afternoon. That's my Mondays. I'm never going to work a Monday again. And it's just one of the best gifts you can have. So, and I know you were in a similar place. So how did you acquire your knowledge and your on money and your entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, with your husband? What was the kind of sources and impetus?
And it's really interesting because people, assume that I always had, the desire to run my own business, to be an entrepreneur. And I absolutely didn't. Because I was brought up, in the very traditional way that the majority of people, are brought up. Work hard at school, go to university, get a job, climb the career ladder. And I was very, very happy doing that. But it was when my children were born, and my children were very small when I left my last role at Orange. They were about 3 and 18 months. I live in Wiltshire. My job was up in London, and I was having to travel, back and forth on a regular basis. My husband had already set up his business, so he was the one that was, feeding the children breakfast before taking them off to nursery, whilst I was heading out the door to catch the train, clock watching, hoping that I would get home to at least give them a kiss goodnight, read a bedtime story, if I was lucky. And it dawned on me, why the heck am I doing this? I am not being a good mum. I'm not being a good wife. I'm not being a good employee, because I'm trying to give to too many people, basically. And that is when the penny dropped, and I decided to leave to join my husband in his business. But what's interesting is one of the very first books I read on money, on entrepreneurship, was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that completely changed my view to parenting, because I was of that mindset. My children work hard at school, still believe that, mind you, work hard at school, go to university, get on the career ladder. Having read Robert's book in 2020, so not that long ago, I fundamentally have changed my approach to parenting. And reading that book happened at the same time, obviously, as lockdown. Most people will question why we are entrepreneurs. Why do you not have the desire, the drive for the guaranteed, monthly salary, amount of money you're going to get the same day of the month every year, every month? Having that security, as they would say. Well, actually, what lockdown taught us was the people who looked after themselves first in any organization, the employees were expendable, basically. And it is only when you put yourself fully in the driving seat, that doesn't mean everybody has to be entrepreneurs, but everybody should have the knowledge that they are expendable, particularly now. There is no such thing as a job for life. And at that point in time, in 2020, reading Robert Kiyosaki, I started my journey of reading more and more books, listening to more and more podcasts, doing more and more, qualifications, becoming, a certified mindset coach, a certified money coach, etc. Really understanding the psychology behind money, because that is the really important piece, is understanding the psychology behind our behavior around money, and understanding our own inner driven mentality around money. So some people, as you already alluded to, will have a real desire to want to be seen to be successful, to have the expensive car, the expensive watch, the latest mobile phone, etc. But for a large number of those people, that success on the outside does not match the success in their bank account. It's very often paid for by credit card, by overdraft, etc. So when you understand how your sense of self-worth and self-value is driving you to behave in a particular way, and then you're really honest with yourself, how is this serving me? Using the same example, how is it serving me to pretend I have the wealth to others that I don't have, in order for others to think better of me? how is that serving me? And when people actually ask themselves that question, they realize what they are doing is limiting the choice that they are making for themselves. And I think when you understand your relationship with money, when you understand the behaviors and the impact, then it puts you in a really clear position to make decisions, because it's never our limiting beliefs that we need to be concerned about, because we can feel the fear and do it anyway, as Nike so beautifully said. It is the limiting decisions that we are taking as a result of our limiting beliefs. That is what drives certain behaviors and then restricts us at some point or other, restricts us from making better choices that are going to serve us better. So the short answer to your question there is, I read a heck of a lot. I study a heck of a lot. I listen to lots of podcasts, and I really do soak up everything that goes on around me, because whilst money should never be the driver, understanding our behaviors around money allows us to be the driver. And I think that is the key thing.
I could agree. Yeah, absolutely. So as we talked on your podcast, actually, I think we've had a similar journey with that, slightly different paces. Yeah. So I think I only read Robert's book about a similar time ago to you, actually, but I'd seen other things. I'm a great listener of podcasts, and particularly YouTube videos. I can go down YouTube wormholes for hours and hours and hours. I take after my dad for that a bit, I think. And so, and it was kind of in that space that I realized, once you get through this understanding phase, your specialism, and you've twigged how the world works and what you want your place in it to be, which for me was freedom, but not glitz and glamour, just freedom. Time, really, security, safety, because one of my bits of my relationship with money, or connected to money, Lesley, is I spent most of my career having a crippling fear of being fired or made redundant. It's a really, really big fear, and it would drive my behaviours at work. I'd work really hard and be the best I could possibly be, and win lots of deals for people and help other people become rich and grow their big businesses. But we're driven by this constant fear that I was going to end up out on my ear. And I remember I had a HR incident with a member of staff that worked for me. I inherited a team that was a real mixed bag, some real low performers and some absolute rock stars in it. And over a 4-year period in a job I had to manage out some of that lower performance and try and build a team that was a high performing team. But one of those members of staff, when we took them through a performance thing, raised a grievance against me, and I ended up in an adjudication. And it was really, really hard. It was the moment that came into focus that it was part of why I started my own business and needed to move on. Really, was I realised that managing people and all that HR stuff just isn't what I enjoy doing. Similar to you when you were working with your husband, it's not the bit that makes your heart sing. I enjoy developing people, doing the positive side of that, and hence why I basically own a training business now, and that's what I do all day is help people along on their journey of learning how to do stuff, learning how to win deals in the core business, and now teaching people about financial freedom. And so that was a real eye-opening moment for me. Was that quite upsetting moment of realizing that there was real fear driving all the wrong behaviors, buying silly cars and clothes and things to show off to other people, when actually the real underlying thing was stability. If I could get myself to a place where I'd got a financial platform of safety off into the future. And like you again, the start, we made the decision and made some moves around our financial freedom 10 years ago or more. The family cars, a bashed up old Toyota, following the old American millionaire thing of drive a Toyota and look after it, drive it till the wheels fall off kind of thing. And we bought the rubbish house in the street and had it done up, and anything that we do is aligned to creating value, which acts as a landing for freedom, really.
Yeah.
Your pandemic, the sort of big shock of losing all of my pipeline of work and all of that kind of stuff, and it brought it home that I was very, very glad we'd got that baseline of, or at least the right behaviours around money. So we're very, very much aligned on that. It's been a really interesting journey, and getting to meet people like you more recently has only spurred things on. So thank you for that. It's really useful stuff. So in terms of your journey to financial freedom, then, if you're comfortable to say, Lesley, what does that look like for you? What's your target, your utopia that you're heading to, and how's that going, I guess?
Well, I've got two children who are 15 and 17. They're both in private school at the moment. So I think them not being at private school in a few years will definitely be, pushing us forward in terms of really achieving full financial freedom. For us, financial freedom is definitely, around being able to make the choice of, we will definitely continue to work, no shadow of a doubt. I think most entrepreneurs don't have this, I am working towards retirement. It's a case of I'm working towards different options. And everything I'm building in my business now is around travel, and being able to take my business with me, my husband being able to take his property business with him, because that is a lifestyle that we have been working towards for, a long period of time. We will continue to have a base in the UK, but chasing the sun, I think, is something that we're looking forward to doing. And for us, that's always involved, making sound financial investments, ensuring that we are understanding that, our money is working for us, but also a life of balance as well. We do love going on holiday, and we go on holiday regularly, and we do enjoy, great holidays. So for us, it is definitely about the balance, but making a decision many years ago of what we wanted life to look like, both in terms of how much time I've very fortunately been able to spend as a mum, because I put my role as mum, ahead of everything else. I never want to miss out on, any of the events the children have, at school, any of the drama performances, etc. But at the same time, I love what I do. I want to support other people to have their own version of financial freedom, whatever that looks like for them. For some people, it's paying off the mortgage. For other people, it's following, a true passion. For other people, it is about taking the foot off the accelerator. So I think it is about working out what is important to you and ensuring that what you are doing is matching your goals and your expectations, and making those tweaks accordingly. I've never been the kind of money coach that says to people, well, how many Costa coffees do you have a week? How often do you go and buy yourself a new outfit? How often do you change your car, etc., etc.? Because that is not for me to make those decisions for other people. What I want to help them do is be really honest about where they are in their life, where they want to get to, and then putting a plan in place that helps them to get there. And I think having a balanced approach is the way to do it, but balance means different things to different people. So I don't think it is a one size fits all. It's really being honest with yourself about what matters, at what stage, and what are you prepared to do to achieve that. And that's been reflected in everything that we have done in terms of the lifestyle that we have created for ourselves, and the ongoing goals that we have in terms of how we want to spend the next stage of our lives, basically.
No, that's fascinating, because I read an American, of course, a lot of the thought leadership in our space is American, isn't it? Because there's just more of them than there is us. So I was reading an article yesterday about a young lady in the States who'd pursued her fire number really hard, 30, I think it was, and actually had probably gone a bit too far in sort of, living a really meager lifestyle, not really enjoyed herself. So she's bounced it back to sort of a fire light kind of number where she might get her financial freedom a bit later, but she's got a bit of balance. And it sounds like you're in that kind of space. We're definitely in that kind of space, and it will tweak up and down depending. We're waiting until Juno goes to school, and then we'll accelerate again, and all of those kind of things. But I thought of you last week before last, Lesley. Since we last spoke, I was sitting in the Heathrow Airport. I was flying out to go and teach a bunch of people in Basel in Switzerland for a day, and I had to fly out the day before. And of course, I haven't flown for business since before the pandemic. So I was a bit nervous about it, wanted to make sure I got to the airport super early and did some work there in a lounge and all that sort of stuff. But when I was waiting for the plane, which was a bit delayed, of course, there was an American guy sitting right next to me. And of course, I couldn't help but overhear his calls because he was sitting at the phone for like the whole hour and a bit. He was delayed. And he was obviously a very senior guy working for a big business. He was talking about clients like Tesla and Coca-Cola and all of these big brands. He'd clearly flown over from the States to the UK for the Monday, Tuesday. He was going, I guess, into Europe for a couple of days and then maybe flying home. But he just looked a bit dead, Lesley. And I just thought, who's got it between me and him? Who's got it right here? And do I want to be doing this, traveling all over the place? Because post-pandemic, of course, it's almost like the pandemic never happened now. People very much want me in person, delivering training with them. And it's very nice to get to go and do that once or twice a week. But unfortunately, last month, I was doing it 3 or 4 days a week. And the calendar was kind of Manchester one day, London the next, Manchester the next day. I had 2 days in Bristol, then in Manchester. And it's just, I was all over the place. And with a young one, it's really not what we're supposed to be doing. So I kind of need Destination Freedom to take off, and some of our other stuff that brings people into focal point webinars, bigger webinars that are open and things, rather than, so I can teach it from my studio here, shed, rather than traveling about all over the place. You need to have a mix and a balance. It's nice to get out and about, but I rammed too much into too short a period of time. But I think us as entrepreneurs and the balance that we can have in life is just a lot more healthy.
I agree.
But in my opinion, obviously, if people want to pursue the big career thing, as long as they're getting paid decent money, of course they're getting taxed like Billio, aren't they? But as long as they get paid decent money and invest it and find a balance and find their own route, then I'm not saying it's wrong to get a job and work your way up in businesses and be successful. There's different horses for different courses, aren't there? But for me personally, I think I'm winning, and I think you are too. But
and I think the thing is that we need everybody to be doing all the different things, the different roles. We need big corporates, we need smaller businesses, we need people in public sector to be doing the things that they're doing. If everybody was entrepreneurs, it would be probably far trickier to run a society, even though entrepreneurs are actually the backbone of society, given we are the ones that, you look at the pandemic, for example, it was the entrepreneurs that had to carry on working because we weren't offered, any government support. So it was a case of carry on doing what you're doing, or you're going to have no ability to manage your life. So I think it does come down to people making a decision. And for some people, as it was for me for 41 years, I worked in corporate, I was 41 years when I left. I worked in corporate for 20 years. For 20 years, it was absolutely the right thing for me because it gave me, a certain skill set, a huge level of confidence. It gave me a really, really good income to buy property, etc., etc. But a point came when it didn't work for me. And rather than carrying on doing something, as very often many people do because they don't believe they have a choice, but my choice came because my husband had started his own business. I do not know if I would be talking to you today if my husband hadn't taken that bold step, but he was able to take that bold step because of the amount of money that I was on in my corporate job. So I do think there's a catalyst that happens for some people. For other people, there's a resistance to a catalyst that could be there. But I think it is a case of really working out what is right for you. What would you do if you couldn't fail? And then to understand what is holding you back from doing that thing. If the answer is, well, there's nothing, I'm really, really happy doing what I am doing here, then brilliant. But if there is something, then I think we owe it to ourselves to actually work out what is holding us back, what is our limiting belief, and how can we go about plugging the gap. Because a client said to me about a fortnight ago, and I loved that she said this to me. She said, Lesley, when I came to work with you, I thought I was working on my relationship with money. I now know I was working on my relationship with my dreams. And I think that is actually it. I think for us entrepreneurs, we are working on our relationship with our dream. It might take us a while to work out what that dream is, but if we allow ourselves the time and space to grow our confidence, to really work out what is it we want to do and how do we make it happen, then I think it's really, really possible to make it happen. Yes, it takes a big, brave step, but we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and there's medium steps, do you have your job and do a bit of property portfolio stuff, or the more time you've got, the younger you start, the more options you've got. But that's all up for grabs. I'm conscious of time, Lesley. I know you've got a meeting, so give us your top 3 tips for people that are looking to get towards financial freedom then.
Well, I think it definitely comes back to what I said around balance. So working out what is important to you. And as far as financial freedom is concerned, where are you placing that in your own personal timeline? Is it a case of wanting to achieve it sooner rather than later, and therefore having to make big tweaks to your own lifestyle for a shorter amount of time in order to achieve financial freedom sooner rather than later? Or do you take a more medium approach that says, I want to be able to have a lifestyle that reflects what's important to me, and understanding why that is important to you, and then recognizing it might take longer to get to that point of financial freedom, and really understanding what your goals are. Because I think most people do go through life without really having any goal for their life or any goals for their life. They simply go from one sliding door moment to the next sliding door moment and feel fortunate or lucky, rather than actually saying, well, no, I designed it this way. I wanted so and so, I wanted a house by 30, and I wanted to have something else by 35, and I wanted to have my second property by exit, etc., etc., etc. Most people don't have a life by design. They have a life literally because it happens in the moment. So I do think it's really important to sit down and plan your goals. And my final point would be, understand what is your why. Why are you doing what you are doing? Because I think, again, most people don't really understand and are not emotionally connected to their why. So they will do things, and then the going will get tough and they'll retract back from what they were doing. But when you are really emotionally connected to your why, that might be financial freedom. It might be about creating, a legacy for your family. It might be about having a philanthropic approach, giving back and helping others. But when you really understand what your why is, that allows you to keep doing what you need to do when the motivation flags. because motivation is temporary. Motivation is what gets you started on a certain course, but motivation tends to disappear when the going gets tough. And it's only when we are truly connected to why we are doing something will we push back the boredom, will we push past the, oh, it's hard, will we push past the limiting beliefs and no longer taking limiting decisions. So for me, it's balance, goals, and why. And I think once you really have identified those three things, then you are putting yourself in the best position to have a life by your design rather than other people making those decisions, and you're just one of those cogs in somebody else's big wheel.
I couldn't have put it better, Lesley. That's a beautiful thing. You've articulated stuff that's been rattling around in my head for some time in such a beautiful way. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Thank you. I'm sure viewers will find that helpful. So we need to get some people signed up with you, really, don't we? Because I think you can make a difference for lots of people. Where do they find you? What's your LinkedIn or Instagram and that?
Okay, so the easiest place to go to, because everything is there, is the website, which is the moneyconfidenceacademy.com, themoneyconfidenceacademy.com, and on there my Instagram handle, which is I am_Lesley Thomas. On LinkedIn, I am Lesley-Thomas. But if you go to themoneyconfidenceacademy.com, and also my podcast, which is Let's Talk Money and More.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And your website is beautiful, by the way. So I've just had a new one designed that I've spent a lot of money on, as I was telling you off camera. But I have to say yours is incredibly impressive. People will find it a really useful resource, I think. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for your time. It's lovely to see you again. And I look forward to people in our programme, being able to connect with you through that too. And hopefully we'll get you in for the odd talk as part of some of our quarterly get-togethers and that kind of stuff in the future too. It's going to be great to be partners in this stuff. Thank you very much, Lesley.
Thank you, Jeremy. I've loved the conversation. Thank you for having me.